Welcome back to AgriTalk. Today we are talking about food safety, and with me in studio today is Dr. Joyce Thaya, who has been telling us a little bit about what we need to know when we are buying our foods from the market to make sure that it is safe. Dr. There is this also these new markets in town. They call themselves organic markets, um, and one of the slogans they use is their food is safe and healthy. How true is that? Can I just walk into an organic market, buy my apples and chew them right there?
There is a lot of discussion about organic food. What is the understanding of what an organic food is? That is something that needs to be understood well. And the most general definition of that is that a food that is grown without using chemicals. And that food, if you're not using chemicals, and it is possible to produce without using chemicals, but you need to do a lot of controls because we have diseases, we have pests that need to be controlled. So it is a choice between using those chemicals, and some of them is very difficult to grow without the chemicals. And maybe uh, that may contribute to its safety. But even the other foods that are grown using chemicals, because most of what we have is grown maybe using one chemical or another, if you observe the correct usage of that particular chemical, then the food would be safe. Yes.
Okay. As a vet, is it also possible to produce animals organically?
Yes, it is possible to produce animals organically, but what you need is to have a very good system of controls, what we call biosecurity. You ensure that no diseases come into your compound. So you have put, maybe you have fenced in your animals such that no stray animals will come in. You are very, very hygienic in your production. The food that you source, the feed for the animal that you source is also very safe. It is possible to do that. Maybe in our current situation, many farmers may not be able to do what you'd call purely organic because of our maybe level of understanding, our infrastructures, and a lot of other factors. But yes, it is possible, and some countries do have what is, you can almost say, purely organic.
Okay. Growing up in the village, we used to have this a number of days we'll go hunting for wild animals, for wild game. And we used to slaughter and just go home and cook the meat and move on with life. How safe was that?
Uh, any
Or
food,
what danger were we putting ourselves in?
any food of animal origin can have danger because, like I said, there are many diseases that cross between human and animals. So any animal can cause disease, can have a disease that can cross to animal. Not
Okay.
can cause disease, can have a disease. Number two, the handling of that meat. Most of the times, the young men would cook and eat it immediately. So maybe the issue of safety was, but that handling, maybe you had a small running stomach and you didn't consider it as contributed by that rabbit or that animal that you ate. But every food should ensure that the animal is healthy and it is handled well. And that is why food inspection is critical
Okay.
to ensure that food is safe.
Okay. When you talk about food inspection, we know there are inspectors who inspect meat. So when does the inspection of meat start? After the animal has been slaughtered or before the animal is slaughtered? Maybe you can take us through the process of inspecting meat and to the time it gets to the butcher.
Inspection of meat would start even at the market, because at the market there is an animal health practitioner, a veterinary officer, who will inspect that animal that is destined to go to a slaughterhouse, ensure to the extent possible that that animal does not have any disease that can be transmitted to that other area, both disease of animal and disease of human. Also, when the animal gets to the slaughter facility, The officers there will do what is called an ante-mortem inspection. That is before death. They will check the animal. They will see if it has any condition that can cause risk to food, including the parasite or any parasites that you would have that would be of risk. When the animal is slaughtered, there is also a third inspection, which is called post-mortem. Post-mortem means after death. Post-mortem inspection, because the ante-mortem inspection would only see what is on the surface. But there could be conditions that are inside. You're not seeing the lungs, the liver, the stomachs, and they could be having conditions that would pose a danger to the consumers of that food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in terms of maintaining safety from the slaughterhouse to the butcher, what should be followed?
From the slaughterhouse to the butcher, there is a regulation that requires that any meat that leaves any slaughterhouse is transported in a carrier or a container that is safe. And these containers are inspected and licensed annually to ensure that the material used to make this container is material that is safe. The container itself is smooth, that does not harbor any bacteria inside it. So, and the meat will also be accompanied by a document, which is called a certificate of transport, which will tell the person at the butchery or wherever that this particular meat came from this particular slaughterhouse.
Okay. Also, I remember, if I take you back to my village, there are instances where we would wake up in the morning and a neighbor's cow has died. And the whole community will come and they will slaughter, and everybody carries a piece and goes home. What danger was that causing? What was the village exposing itself to?
That is extremely dangerous because, like I said, 70% of animal diseases will cross over to human. If an animal dies, we do not know of what this animal has died. And considering the high percent of diseases that cross over, there's a risk that that animal will have died of a disease that can cause risk. And one of the diseases that we have, and even in the recent past we have had problems of people dying, is what is called anthrax. And this is a very dangerous disease that causes death to both animals and humans. So no animal should be eaten before it is inspected. Okay. And no animal should be of essence, even should be inspected before death, because there are some conditions that you may not see once animal is slaughtered, and you have noticed when the animal is still alive.
Okay. So what is the procedure of disposing these kind of animals to ensure that also other animals in the farm, like the dog and the rest, should not consume it?
The dead animal should either be buried deep. That is, I think, the most economical, or burnt, completely burnt,
Okay.
to ensure that you do not transmit any diseases, both to human, because that dog will take that bone and take it to a neighbor's place and carry that disease from there to the neighbor's place.
Okay. Okay. Now let's move on to another problem that we have. It's all over the world: pollution. How is pollution a risk to food safety?
Pollution is a risk to food safety because that pollutant would probably be a chemical which can cause hazard to human beings, whether it is in the air, in the water, or in whatever other material. So as we continue polluting our environment, we are increasing the risk of that particular contaminant getting into the food we eat and into water, and we said water is also food. So pollution poses a big risk to the safety of our food, and as much as possible, everybody should play a part.
Okay. We've also had instances where people grow food along the sewer lines. We've also seen animals feeding and the dust. What do we call
Dump site?
dump sites?
Okay.
What are the dangers of either eating food grown in this along the sewer line, or eating meat from an animal that had been feeding in the dump site?
When you grow food along a sewer line, This sewer line has a lot of contaminants. It has bacteria, which can contaminate the food.
Mm-hmm.
It also has a lot of chemicals, which can get into the food and get into us. So eating food grown in any place that is not safe, that may have pollution, and not just sewer line. If you are growing food also near a dump site, food near an industry that is a heavy polluter, like maybe has a lot of smoke or has effluent from the uh, factory, that food is not safe. Two, when animals eat near dump sites or other polluted areas, again we say what an animal eats is what it is.
Okay.
So when it eats there, it is likely to get those contaminants, and these are likely to express both in the milk or in the meat or in the eggs coming from these animals.
Okay. I remember you had said when food is not safe, it is not food. So what are there diseases that are caused by uh, us consuming unsafe food?
Yes, there are diseases and conditions that would arise from food that is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
One, if that food is having bacteria that can cause disease in human beings, maybe because these bacteria were in the sick animal, or this bacteria has been brought into the food by the person handling that food, and they have maybe dirty hands or dirty equipment, this will be a problem to the food.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they are.
Okay. Um, let's talk about also trying to make sure that food produced within the slums, because we have so many slums around here, and they produce their own food. What do they also need to know, having in mind that in these informal settlements, water is an issue. They don't have toilets. So how do they ensure that whatever they are producing is also safe for them to consume?
One, I believe that the authorities should, as much as possible, ensure that they have those facilities,
Mm-hmm.
because not just an aspect of food, but if there are no toilets, there are many other conditions not passed through food that can affect these people. So once that is provided, also water is a right
Mm-hmm.
that should be provided for by the authorities.
Mm-hmm.
But as the people themselves, they should ensure as much as possible that the food is clean. They buy it, if it is not clean when they buy, they clean it. They cook it well, and they also take care of their own personal hygiene, because if your hands are not clean, then you handle the food also becomes a risk to your own health.
Okay. Who are the most vulnerable when it comes to food safety or unsafe food?
The people who are most vulnerable would be the people whose immunity is low.
Mm-hmm.
This would include children, and particularly children under 5 years, because the immunity is still growing. This would also include the elderly. It would also include people who are having underlying conditions, or people who are immunocompromised. These, just like they are vulnerable to any other condition and disease, they are also vulnerable to any risks of coming from food safety.
Okay. We know there's a World Food Safety Day. Tell us a little bit, why is it important, or why was it important to be introduced to the world calendar?
The governments of the world realized that people do not consider much food safety and all aspects that can contribute to unsafe food. So in order to create awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and in order to build the profile of safe food in the world, it was agreed that there should be a day when we commemorate and we remind ourselves that it is important to have safe food.
Okay.
So it was started. This should be the third year, I believe, of the World Food Safety Day. So, and World Food Safety Day is celebrated every 7th of June.
Okay. Okay, there's also one issue I've also noticed with farmers, and I don't know whether it is helping or it is even creating more problems. You get a farmer planting two sets of crops, one for the market, one for their own consumption, and the way they grow both, it's very different. This one they will spray, this one they will not spray. What does that mean at the end of the day when it comes to food safety?
If somebody is doing that so that they can sell the food that is unsafe to people, that would be considered food fraud because you are doing a bad thing for economic gain. That is wrong, and it is dangerous and it is criminal to present to consumers food that is not safe, particularly if you know well that it is not safe. And also the risk of that, even to your own self as a farmer. You are producing your food in Nyeri and you are selling this food in Nairobi. You may not be eating that safe food, but your child in Nairobi will buy that tomato. And even if you supply those tomatoes to your child in Nairobi, that child will be in school, that child will go to a neighbor's place, and they'll eat that which you presented to the market as unsafe. And as the saying goes, what goes out comes out.
Okay. Is it not also ironical that uh, government institutions go to any length to make sure that any food that is being produced for export meets the regulations of the market that those foods are going to, but they are not able to regulate the food that we produce for our own consumption.
Maybe how I would start answering that is ensuring food safety is very expensive. And ensuring food safety is actually not a function of the government, it's a function of the person who is producing that food.
Okay.
So why the food that is going out would seem to undergo stricter controls is because the person who is selling that food, in this case not the government, has a market requirement. If that market requires the food to be in this condition or handled like this, they will buy it when it is handled like that. So normally that is driven by the market demand, but of essence, there should be not at all any discrimination between what we eat and what we sell out. But because of our own food, the people who are the food business operators, not understanding that all food should be presented to the consumer safe.
Okay.
So sometimes we give that to the market. Then ensuring food safe is also expensive. So that may be contributing, but of essence, there should be no discrimination.
Okay. Um, Milk is also one of the most consumed product, animal product that we consume in this country. But also, I understand that milk has also been labeled that it's one of the most contaminated farm products. Why is that? And what do we need to know, or what do our farmers need to know to ensure that uh, they produce a safe and healthy product that goes to market?
My take is that milk could be considered that because milk is a very good food also for bacteria. So they will grow if it is not handled well. Two, most of our milk is sold informally. So the handling may also be a challenge along the chain. Number three, the farmers may not understand that their farm practices at the ground level has an impact on the milk that they are selling.
Okay.
So number one, farmers should produce their milk from healthy animals, animals that are fed with a safe feed. When they are milking the milk, their heart should be clean. The equipment that they are using for milking should be clean. When they are transporting the milk to the market, the containers that are used should be clean. And we have dairy regulations controlled by the Kenya Dairy Board, where they set the standards for this milk, whether milk is going to a milk bar, which is regulated by the Kenya Dairy Board, or milk is going to further processing, milk should be handled safely because it is a risk. Of course, we talked of food fraud, and there are people who would want, for economic gains, to adulterate the milk. So that would be the risk that we have. But those are just bad people who want to make a gain at the expense of the health of the nation.
Okay. I don't know whether you're in a position to answer this one. Are you in a position to give us a comparison between us and our neighbors when it comes to food safety? Are we better off, or they are better off, or we are all the same?
I may not be able to say critically, but we have East African standards. I can start from there. And these standards should be applied across the industry. But enforcement may be a function of each government. But what I would say is that why Kenya is considered middle income and others have been lower than that is because most of the laws that we have, our laws are much older than most of the laws of our neighbors. In fact, many of them have copied from our laws. But if we don't continue with our game, they may overtake us.
Okay.
But because we need proper facilities, our food business operators should put proper facilities to ensure safe food. But I'm not able to say whether we are better than them or worse than them for most of the cases. But in some countries, they may not even be having those regulations.
Okay.
So, and the infrastructure in Kenya, to a large extent, is higher than many of our neighbors, but they are catching up.
Okay.
They are catching up.
Okay. As we wind up, Doctor, they say information is power, like all the information you've given us today about food safety. So, if someone is out there and trying to look for information about how to ensure that everything they produce or they are buying in the market is safe, where do they get this information?
Currently, particularly now for the younger generations, there's quite a lot of information on the internet, and we have the ministry sites where a lot of information is put. Because again, you can have the job getting a lot of information that may not be factual or true. So there are government institutions. Somebody can walk into a government office, depending on whatever information you want, and it's your right to get information on that, whether it is your county veterinary office, county health office, county environment office. So information can also be gotten from there. But maybe we should also have a lot of food safety issues incorporated in our curricula so that everybody right from school, they start understanding the food safety aspects. So information is there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doc. That is all the time we had for this conversation today. I'm sure our viewers have benefited from the conversation we've had about food safety, and we will be able to see more safer food being produced and even being sold in our markets. For our viewers back at home, that is all the time we had today on food safety. Until next time, goodbye.